Hello. Today's conversation is with cellist, guitarist, and singer-songwriter around the Austin area, Dan Radin. Dan and I met pretty early after I moved to Austin because he booked me to do a songwriter series at Friends and Allies Brewing Company. And Dan also runs the open mic every Tuesday night at Friends and Allies Brewing Company. So if you want to go check out some of his music or get a chance to play or hear some cool comedians from around the Austin area, go out on a Tuesday to Friends and Allies and hang out with them. They have a good time. And also, if you want to hear Dan's music, he plays around town all the time. He plays sets everywhere around the Austin area, sometimes outside of the Austin area. So there's a lot of chances to see him. Go check him out. In our conversation, we get into Dan's history as a musician, how he became the cellist that he is today, starting with some formal training and then moving to sort of a self-taught system and just playing all the time, playing with other people and developing his unique voice as a musician. We get into some of his ideas about artistry and cover bands and all sorts of things like that. But before we get to that, please remember to leave a comment, and subscribe to my channels. I operate as an artist on a value-for-value model, which means that I provide content out to the world through podcasts, through music, through things like that. And I ask that if you derive value from it, if you listen, if you like it, that you respond in kind by providing value back to me. There's different ways of doing that. You can subscribe to my Patreon with a link below. There's various levels of monthly subscriptions with all their different perks and things like that. You can donate to my Venmo with a QR code there. You can donate Bitcoin with a QR code there, or you can just comment. You can interact and come out to a show. A couple shows that I have coming up this Thursday. This would be June 9th. I am playing with Mark Dennison, the cajon player, at Cherrywood Coffee House in Austin, Texas. We'll be playing starting at 8 o'clock. And then on July 3rd, I'm playing with Sap and Claw Elixir, my duo, in Los Angeles. We are playing at Universal Bar and Grill in North Hollywood. So come on out to that one. That's going to be a fun time. Come have a drink with us. Just hang out. It'll be a fun Sunday evening before July 4th. And then on August 1st, we are playing at 4th Street Vine in Long Beach, California. And on August 4th, we are playing at the Mint in Hollywood, California. And also, we just put out our first EP, Sap and Claw Elixir. It's called First Tap. It's available on all the streaming platforms and everything. There's a link below. We put a lot of work into it. We enjoyed making it, so I hope you all enjoy listening to it. All right, now to the show. Welcome to Music in Mind. Music in Mind with Anthony Caulkins. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
This is Dan Radin. He is a cellist and guitarist, gigs all over Austin and the Austin area, plays super busy all the time, and also hosts an awesome open mic every Tuesday night at Friends and Allies Brewing in Austin, Texas. It's great, but cheers.
Cheers, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the podcast. We're drinking the Love Street Blonde, which I found when I came to Austin, and it's great.
So it used to be a craft beer. They're Carbox out in Houston, right?
That's right. Yeah, I think.
Rumor has it they sold out to, I want to say, Anheuser-Busch. So they're one of the big guys now, which is why we have Love Street everywhere, which is cool.
I like their beers. I like Hopadillo a lot too.
Hopadillo's great.
Although I was once corrected at a bar, and I ordered a Hopadillo. And the lady said, "Do you mean Hopadillo?" And then I was like, "Isn't it an armadillo?"
Is it actually? Yeah, right. So it's an armadillo.
Yeah, I suppose it probably is in Spanish, right?
I don't know, man. I didn't do so well in Spanish after 10th grade.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, it's a good beer.
Yeah,
it'll knock you out though. It's like 7% beer.
Yeah, that one's strong. So we were just talking a little bit before about musicians categorizing themselves. So I was asking, you're a cellist, you're a guitarist, you're a singer, are you a songwriter, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It's and you pointed out it's sort of a tricky thing, and all musicians get a little testy about the categorization thing.
Dude, it's funny, like when people say, hey, what kind of music do you make? What's your genre? Mm-hmm. Nobody ever wants to be put in a box. People say, oh, I play rock, but like there's the phrase on the Austin Facebook groups for musicians is indie jazz rock bullshit.
Oh yeah.
Because like people just can't categorize themselves, and they obviously as a songwriter you don't want to ever like frame yourself too hard because you feel like you're alienating people, or it's not like truly representative of everything you do. But Yeah, to your point, if people ask what I do, like I say I'm a cellist. That's what I do.
Interesting. Okay,
That's
so
it.
you just say cellist.
Yep.
I see.
Although I produce, I sing, play with other people, whatever. But I'm a cellist. I'm
I
not
feel
like
like
a
I've
singer.
seen you play guitar more than I've seen you play cello.
You probably
around
have,
town,
which is funny.
interesting.
Again, like doing what the market dictates. Like
Yes.
that's where I'm getting gigs as a singer-songwriter. I'm a way better cellist than I am a guitarist, for no question.
Right.
know?
Interesting.
But most of my gigs, I say 60% of my gigs now are singing and playing guitar.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of like the thing around Austin, right?
It is.
And
But you
those-
do the same thing.
Those
with,
3-4 hour gigs, and then just like you rack them up.
dude, you gotta fill it somehow. 4-hour gigs are just like kind of
4
pushing
is
the limit.
bad, man. 4 is no good.
Because your voice is shot the next day. I'm doing a lot of back-to-back 3-hour gigs. Like in the same day, I'll go like Friends and Allies and then go play I'm usually playing the sushi bar out in Lakeway on Saturday
cool.
nights now. So like most Saturdays, it's like 6 hours there, and then sometime I'll have a brunch gig before that. So it just like gets out of hand, but you have to figure out how to budget your time and figure out how to save your voice. So then you mix up with the cello a little bit and a little bit of guitar. I'm sure you do the same thing with the banjo and
Yeah, exactly.
You bring 2 instruments everywhere you go.
Yep.
So.
Yep. The it's interesting because so I wasn't used to playing such long gigs until I moved to Austin, and then I got a few, and I thought it would get easier. But then every person you play with has different songs, and it's just like there's a lot of songs. There's so many songs. There's way too many songs.
And like, how do you prepare for that? You know, you're sometimes so OnSong. I don't know if you use that app.
No,
It's an iPad app called OnSong.
Okay.
It's changed the way I gig because basically I can make a set list, change the key, whatever, capo it.
Oh, nice.
And then I can send it to you ahead of time. So I can say
Great.
like, hey, Anthony, we're going to have, our gig next Sunday. Here's the set list. Let me know if you have any questions or you want to change the key or something.
Yeah.
And I can just re-update the PDF, send it right back out to you.
That sounds amazing.
It's great.
That sounds like way less work than what I've been doing.
It is game changing. I'll tell you about it when we can go offline.
Yeah. That sounds great.
It's great though, man. So tell me about the difference between like the LA scene where you were pretty involved in versus coming to Austin, because like I hear the stories of musicians all the time in Austin saying there's not an industry presence. There's no like real core of like a singer-songwriter circuit like Nashville has.
Yep.
And then just labels in general are just not here. And obviously being in 2022, we don't need a label. That's just not a thing anymore. But the publicity side of it, I think, is what keeps people from leaving. So Tamara Mack, like just left Austin. She was, big fish in a small pond.
Right.
And she just went to LA because of that.
Yes.
Kaleo started in Austin, and then they moved. I want to say they went to Nashville.
Okay. Yeah.
And then they broke huge. So, what is keeping people here in Austin? And why did you choose to come here?
Yeah. I mean, so you've been here longer than I have, so correct me if I'm wrong. I kind of see Austin as a workout city in the way that LA and New York are workout cities for comics. And
meaning that's where you hone your chops. Is that?
Yeah. So like I should have been in Austin when I was 19.
Gotcha.
Because you can play every night here easily.
Yep.
And you can play multiple times a day. You can rack up 3-hour gigs and just get performance reps in. So you become just like an absolute pro performer, and you're playing your music live so much that you can get to that spot like professional touring musicians where they're not really messing up, or if they are, you're not noticing it. It's that sort of level where like if you go and see Tool, for instance, live,
they're so good,
right? And they're definitely not going to mess up. And if they do, like there's no danger. They're just playing their tunes easy, even though they're hard tunes, that kind of a thing. And so I see Austin as a place that if you utilize it right, allows you to get there in a way that LA doesn't, because LA is expecting a certain level of success already.
Does that mean you're not going to get booked for those gigs? Like,
so
what's keeping you? Obviously, LA's got a bajillion bars and venues and whatever else.
It does. So LA has a problem that Austin has a very established open mic and jam scene as a beginning stepping stone. And then they seem to also have a very established sort of low-level, easy-to-get gigs at bars and restaurants and venues all over the city, and then it goes up from there. And then you can get headlining gigs at like the cool bars, and then you could go up to like theaters. You could do Antone's, you could do the Paramount if you're really killing it.
That'd be sick.
ACL
Someday.
or something like that. Right, right. Yeah, yeah.
Stubs.
Of course, those big ones. So it's got all those stepping stones. LA doesn't have as established an open mic scene. A lot of the open mics in LA, you even have to pay to play.
You have to pay to
Play an open mic.
How many songs do you get?
I don't know. I haven't done it. But
First off, as a concept, that's bullshit. But
I know the pay to play. So pay to play is the game in LA unless you're bringing in real money.
Wow. See, like other parts of the country, like you're selling tickets like pay to play, not like a sign up and there's a fee for the.
It could be either way. So there's tons of really predatory bookers in LA who contact musicians who have no following and bring no value yet, and they're like, okay, like I'm gonna book you on the show at the Whiskey, like, and then young musicians are like, oh, I get to play at the Whiskey, and they're like, yeah,
that's killer.
Yeah, and they're like, okay, we just need you to sell 60 tickets, and you're on the hook for all the money. And you say you can't, and they're like, okay, well, can you do 45? And it's like, no, I can't do anything. Like, they shouldn't be playing at that venue if that's what that venue needs. It's like predatory.
That's the draw, right?
Exactly. They should be playing. They should be doing 3-hour sets at a restaurant, like learning stagecraft, learning how to have presence as a musician.
Yeah. Yep.
And then take a leap and try a bar gig and try a bunch of bar gigs and try a bar gig way out in the sticks and like all these things.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, man.
What do you think?
I think you're spot on. Like, so at what point do you like? What's your gut tell you? At which point you're like ready to take that step into again? If your goal is to be a national act, a touring musician, whatever. At what point do you say like, hey, I'm ready for the limelight?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very difficult. So I tend to look at comedians as a career model for a performer because it's so pared down, right? They're just talking, and one thing I notice is that comedians say that when comedians who have made something of a career say when they need to make money, they go on the road. And so I feel like that for me, that's a goal. Is I want to be able to be like, oh, I need money, I'm going on the road
to tour.
Exactly. But I don't have that option now. If I go on the road now, I'm losing a lot of money.
Yeah, well, especially with gas prices.
Exactly. No, exactly. But I think that's where a lot of us are. And so we're shooting for that. And that's what I'm saying about Austin being a workout city. And then what you're saying about then the stepping stone, maybe go to Nashville, maybe then go to LA, maybe then go to New York or something like that. Although I think New York is also a workout city in its own way.
It can be, for sure.
Yeah.
There's so much of a DIY culture in New York also. But
So what about you? You came from Pittsburgh, right?
Yep.
And then you came to Austin. So what would you say the difference is in terms of working as a musician there versus here?
So when I was in Pittsburgh, it was definitely like I was still very green. I think it is the best way to put it. Like I was still in college, like playing with my folk band at the time.
Right.
And those were the majority of my gigs, and like we were again working our asses off. We were playing like 3-4 times a week.
Okay. Great.
And around school schedules and family stuff and athletics, whatever else you were involved in, right? We still like prioritized the band to a point. And we just it was really cool like seeing them how far they've come just being in Pittsburgh, and they've toured and they've booked their own tours nationally for
cool. Are they still going?
They're still going.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. They got a whole new cast of characters, which is really cool. But the main front man is still doing his thing, and he's carrying it on. But just like see how far like he's come, I'm proud of him, but it also shows like it's really hard. They had to leave town to be able to get those reps.
Yes. Yep.
Again, like you can find places to play, but in Austin it's so much easier.
Right.
And really that's what took me to Austin was like I was really between LA, Nashville, and Austin. I was going to move to one of those cities. Yep. And basically the reason I ended up in Austin was because Oracle paid for me to move here.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So you go. I still have a tech job, but
great.
That was one of the things that was kind of the tipping point bringing me to Austin. And I didn't know shit about Austin before I came here. I'd never been to Texas.
Same here.
You just took a leap of faith and tried it. That's cool, man.
Do you feel like it was the right decision?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I was actually, this is so funny. I was thinking about this in the car on the way over here. If I had ended up in Nashville. So right when I was graduating, I went down to Nashville for a bachelor party, and I'd never been to Nashville either. I was like, had a great time, and we were, at Tootsie's on Broadway. and everyone's wasted, and the groom, who's one of my good friends, goes up to this violin player on stage, and he's like, "Yo, he plays cello. Like, get him up on stage with you." I'm like, "Do you see a fucking cello here? Like, what do you think we're gonna do here?" So she's like, "Actually, like, I need a cellist from my band. Can we chat?" And we exchanged numbers. And I ended up driving back to Nashville the week after that, 7 days later, and went and auditioned with her band. And they were like, "Hey, like." Basically, they were aiming for a publishing kind of like TV deal. They knew people at National Geographic. They knew people at the Discovery Channel. And basically, they were making kind of like jazz world music for backgrounds for those soundtracks for like Shark Week and shit, you know? And it was a 4-piece. I would have been the 4th. It was violin, drum, bass, and I would have been cello.
Okay.
But they didn't give me the part. And I was like, guys, I don't know if this is the right move for me, because I was freaking out about making money.
Right.
Because of student loans. And that's one of the things, like, I always wondered, like, what if I had gone to Nashville, I would have stepped into session life immediately, you know? It's not even fucked around with the day job. But like Austin, man, it's been the place to, you know, it's gotten us to where we are, you know? And I'm really thankful for that. Yeah. I met a lot of cool people here, made a lot of friends here, a lot of musicians, a lot of supporters of the arts. There's a lot of like foundations, like Black Fret and Ham, and you know, Sims Foundation. So I got to do a lot of cool things. Like I don't regret that at all, because it's a much level playing field compared to Nashville.
Yes. So. Well, it seems like Texas really supports musicians, Austin specifically, but actually Texas, the state.
So the state has, there's an actual, like, I don't know if you know, it's the Texas Music Office.
Yes. Yep.
Right.
I do.
Okay, so
it's wild.
For anybody out there listening, there's actually a state-funded portion of the government that goes toward helping local artists.
Which is funny considering what you think about Texas, like no taxes, no government, blah, blah, blah.
Right, and that's as democratic as it gets, man.
Yeah.
But like it makes you think, like, there's so much red dirt, like country, like amazing singer-songwriters in these small towns. A guy came out to Friends and Allies yesterday. His name is Andrew Kreitz. He just moved down to New Braunfels, but he's been playing like small towns in Texas. He's like, "Look, man, I'm making like $1,500 a night."
Great.
And I was like, that's wild, because people are just, he crushes it. First off, he's got an amazing voice. But he plays the songs that people want to hear, and they're so appreciative of having some kind of music in fucking New Braunfels or San Marcos, wherever it is, like a little bit outside the main cities. We played a gig, Julie and I played a gig in LaGrange on Friday night. Cool. There were maybe like 50 people there, but we still walked away with like a lot of cash from people just, that's local
amazing.
place
You're
to
bringing
congregate.
Value.
They had a good time. You know?
I love this idea. This is it's something. I'm curious to know your opinion on it. The struggle between, quote, being an artist and then being a musician. You're also a technician, and I see it as this weird kind of half blue collar, half white collar world.
How so?
Well, so like when I was working in LA, I did pit work for Broadway shows, which felt very tradesman like. I had a trade. So I wasn't there to be an artist. I was there to provide a service. Yes. And I would say that being a musician at a bar, it's a little bit of both, because you're bringing a vibe, and so that artistness helps. Yep. And so, you know, a lot of people have hats in Austin, shades, things like that. All that stuff helps, the whole vibe thing.
It's your,
But you also, like you're saying, play songs that people like, that people want to hear. Now you're being a technician. Now you have a trade. I can make people happy with songs that they like to hear, versus going like, no, I'm only playing my music and these are my tunes, and why doesn't anybody want to listen to my tunes? And it's a weird balance between the two, because you can get stuck in the tradesman thing and never get to be an artist if you want to be an artist.
It comes down to focus. Like, it's so easy to get sucked into the cover band world. Man, that's a really good observation, though. Like, I think about that a lot. Like, having the formal training versus like the real world experience. Right. But especially like in a Broadway pit kind of setting, like it's only formal training. Right. That's all there is. Right. You know, people don't just like, hey, I think I'm going to show up to an open mic and like start singing Broadway. Like, that's just not usually what happens. Yeah. Right. I had another thought there. I'm blanking on it.
Artist, tradesman, that kind of like. What about you? Would you consider yourself an artist or a tradesman, or some combination of the two?
I'm an artist at my. Well, I'm kicking your mic here. Sorry. Definitely an artist at the core.
Yeah.
But I obsess over getting really good at craft.
Right.
So that's led me to we're talking sound engineering stuff, like watching hours of YouTube. Like I want to learn how to produce myself because I wanted full control over the production process, the recording, the mixing. I'm not great at mixing still, but like,
dude, it's hard.
It is, especially you got a lot of elements going on. Layers and,
I feel like anybody who says they're not great at mixing has some potential, at least.
Yeah.
If somebody's like, I'm a great mixer, it's like, you're probably not.
Or maybe they are, and
maybe,
and that's when they're charging $1,000 a song.
Sure. Yeah, that helps the charging.
Yeah, but you know, to your point earlier, like, are you pleasing other people or are you pleasing yourself? And part of that is like learning to read the room. If you want to pander and like work for tips, like you have to. You got to own the room and you got to give the people what they want. Yeah. You know, and make it a fun experience for them because that's when they want to come back.
Yeah. How do you feel about charging extra for certain requests?
Charging for like a song request?
Yeah, like one that I think, Hotel California. Someone's like, that costs $50 extra.
Well, you do that at a piano bar.
Yeah.
That's where I think that distinction is.
What do you think about that move? I mean,
I would never say that in a mic. So what I've seen some artists do very successfully is like they put their Venmo up and say, if you have a request, they have their phone here on the stand, and they say, if you have a request, Venmo me, and we'll see what we can do for you. Yeah. They don't make any promises, but
that's smart.
Then you see the Venmo come in with a song request, and then they say, hey, this one goes out to so and so, and they're getting the tip regardless. There's been times like I've had groups of like dipshit bachelorette parties. Shouting out like one song after another, and a single tip comes in, you know. So there's moments like that, but like ultimately, the humanitarian in me wants to please other people.
Of course.
So I typically, if I know the song, I'll play it regardless, and just you know, people are appreciative anyway. Yeah. I sang "Happy Birthday" to somebody last week, and his girlfriend tipped me $20.
There you go.
And like I was not expecting that. Like again, a tip is optional. Yep. So if you want to sell Hotel California. That's one thing.
Then you better play it right.
Yes.
That's the thing that I think is... Yeah, no.
You can't fuck it up.
You can't. Especially if you're charging extra for it, you better play it right.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. But it's such a classic. Like, people know if you miss a note. They know if you skip a verse. That's the problem with songs like that. Yep. Because they're singing along.
Oh, yeah. Man, they're singing the guitar solo.
Yeah,
you better play that right,
note
too.
Note for note.
Yeah.
But then there's like people that yell Freebird, and they're like, yo, you're on minute 6 of the song, and you're like, all right, I'm over it. Like, people that yell Freebird don't realize if somebody actually plays that, you're in for 13 minutes of life you're not getting back. So
what's your history with cello, with music?
Good question. So my mom had the wisdom to start me and my sisters out on piano when we were barely reached the keyboard. I think I was 5 when I took my first piano lesson.
Oh, cool.
So basically, as soon as I could read and kind of have an understanding of like what music is, my mom was like, "All right, you're starting lessons." Yeah. Took lessons for about 6 years in total, maybe. But I got introduced to cello in 3rd grade through our school district because they offered lessons through the school. That turned into private lessons during the summer, and that turned into private lessons throughout the year in addition to school. And then I was playing in orchestras and youth symphonies on fucking Saturdays, and like, got to do some cool stuff.
That's great. Yeah.
I played my first wedding when I was 13 or 14.
Whoa.
And since then I've played 300 some weddings in 6 states, and you know, I'm flying with this once in a while here. Okay. Which is cool.
Yeah. How? I bet that is no fun.
So it's not, but it's also you got to buy a seat for it.
I see.
So I'm not gonna like, you know, you ever hear the United Breaks Guitars song, that story? I will never ever, like, cellos and dogs will not go under the thing, right? So I have to buy a seat for it, and then I actually just got a companion pass for Southwest Airlines, so that if I have a gig out of state, it's easy to do.
Cool. That's great.
So if you want to go tour the West Coast, man, we can just jump on a plane and
I mean, I go out there a lot. I didn't know about that Southwest thing. That's a good idea. That's great. So you started playing piano when you were young. Did you study music in college or anything like that?
I went to Pitt thinking I was going to be a theater major.
Okay.
And go for stage management, and then I ended up changing my major like 6 times, but came out of it with a music minor.
Oh, okay.
So
in classical cello?
they just called it music minor at Pitt.
Okay, I see.
But I took composition classes. A lot of it was ear training. Some of my favorite classes were ear training.
Yeah.
There's a professor there who I think is retired now, John Goldsmith, who is my favorite teacher. He just taught you the things that I learned in his class. I'm applying directly to my cello playing today.
That's great.
Relative pitch is a learnable skill.
Yeah. And it's huge. I mean, it's the superpower. That's what is Adam Neely. I think he says that. It's a superpower if you can do it. Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you have it well, like if you have it really honed.
Yeah, it's like if you can, play a C. Like sometimes I'll walk into a bar and be like, all right, they're playing this a half step down from the original recording. Like
that's really good.
I can tell that sometimes, right? But like having relative pitch and saying, okay, this goes from the 1 to the 5 to the 4. You just have that in your fingers at some point, and I think that's like crossing the line into like turning pro. Right?
Oh yeah. Do you think in numbers?
Sometime.
Yeah. I mean, we're getting technical music stuff. So
who's your audience here? Like who we
mostly musicians. Mostly
cool.
Musicians. That's good.
So they're gonna understand the
it's
lingo.
okay. I also have this other thing that I've heard about: make your audience come to you. So don't over-explain concepts. Just talk what you're talking about and challenge them to find you.
All right, so come find us if you guys have a question. I don't know.
Right, it's a numbering system. So I learned recently that in Austin, minor, if you're in a minor key, like E minor, you'd call E1.
I do that a lot, actually.
In Nashville,
it's a 6.
It's a 6.
Really?
Which is which is interesting because where I went to school for undergrad, I studied composition at University of Wisconsin-Madison, and the theory professor there had everything based on 6. So you'd sing a major scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and you'd sing a minor scale, la, ti, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la.
That's what we did also. I guess that's the
great.
technically...
Right. And so you're relating the major and the minor to each other like that. And so like I just got these charts. I had a South by Southwest gig with a band from Nashville that was coming to town, and they sent me the charts, and it was all like 6, 2, 3, and I was like, what kind of song is 6? What? And I was like, oh, it's just mine.
Got it. Interesting. Man, it's communication, right? Yeah. At the end of the day, it's like you've got to be able to say it in a way that somebody else is going to interpret it and understand.
That's the key.
Same.
Yep.
So it doesn't matter what language you're speaking, be it Spanish, French, German, whatever, as long as you're picking up what I'm putting down.
Yeah. Well, that's where the ear comes in handy, because then you don't have to talk as much.
For sure.
Yeah.
And especially in Western music, there's a lot of leading tones. There's a lot of common blues-based progressions that you can kind of pick up. Like you hear one song, you've heard them all kind of thing.
Yeah.
The Nashville 100, right?
Yeah.
Which is, do you know what that is?
No, I don't.
I heard this phrase recently.
I don't.
So it's the standard like Broadway 100 top requested songs or whatever.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's like a standard set list. So like you have to learn the Nashville 100 to sit in as a session player, right?
Yeah.
But it just matters. Like if you hear a song and you know it's like a certain region or written in a certain time period, you can probably guess the next chord.
Yes.
Or if you're just going up to a lead line, like where the note's going to end.
Yeah.
And then just watching other people for the cutoff. That's the other.
Yeah.
Thing.
So for you, what do you see yourself as wanting to be musically? So we're talking about an artist or a tradesman. You're a cellist. You host these open mics. You're very active in the Austin scene. Do you have a vision for where it goes?
I do, man. So ultimately,
you don't have to give everything away.
No, it's cool because like not everybody has the curiosity to ask something like that. Ultimately, I think the things that will make me happiest is playing in a serious touring band.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what I want to do. Like be like the cellist for the Avett Brothers. Like Joe Kwan is amazing, or the cellist for the Lumineers kind of deal. That's what I think is ultimately going to be my goal.
Right.
But I really would love to model my career on like Jack Antonoff, because he just seems to go do so many cool fucking things. So he started off, he was the guitarist for Fun, right?
Okay.
The band Fun.
Yeah.
Some nights and all that.
Yeah. They're great.
Amazing. So
my college years.
Yeah, for real, man. that's really when they came out. Since then, he's gone on to do just so many different projects. So when that band disbanded, He started Bleachers, right? He's
Okay.
the frontman for Bleachers.
Okay.
They do amazing work in their own right.
Yeah.
He's an incredible frontman and just like has this like presence. He doesn't have the voice that Nate Roos does, obviously, because Nate from Fun is just unbelievable. But Jack does such a good job of making it his own and just like cultivating like the Jersey boy kind of thing. And then he's basically taken the success from Bleachers and applied that to a bajillion other artists.
Right.
He's produced for Taylor Swift and Lana Del Rey, and like he's done some really other cool stuff. Same way Dan Auerbach from Black Keys has done it. He takes his knowledge from his band and gives it to somebody else.
So do you want your own band?
I would love to do it. It's a 3-pronged approach, right?
Yeah.
The first is like being with a group of world-class musicians. Second is like, it would be really cool to have like a side project doing my own thing.
That's your own, yeah.
And then the third is like more of like a mentoring, like kind of like production ear, be like a Rick Rubin, maybe later stage career. That would be
amazing.
my dream.
Yeah.
That's so I get a chance to like help out other artists and make some really great art also. But it doesn't have to be your face on it.
Of course. There's another problem. I feel like as we get older, I notice it more and more in that the best time to start a band is when you're 16.
True.
And learning together, because you're not worth anything yet. You don't provide any value yet, so you can help each other. The problem is when you're my age, or I don't actually know how old you are, but anyway.
I'm 31.
Oh, okay. I'm 32. So
Yeah,
we're our age.
We're not that old, man. That's truly.
No. We're not that. It's not that we're that old. It's that musicians are already good at our age. Good musicians are already good, and so they need to be paid. They actually need to be paid.
Yep.
The tricky part is when you're paying people to play with you, they don't have the same creative investment very often in your work.
It's very true.
And so it's that difficult balance between, if you're trying to start an artistic project, that artist versus tradesman issue again, you're trying to start an artistic project that's collaborative. You need everybody to have creative investment in the project.
Yep.
And very often when you're paying people, they're there providing you a service.
It's a hard gun.
Exactly. So no matter how good they are, like that's great, but you still don't have the collaborative aspect as much.
For sure, man. You see like a shrinking pool of like available talent then.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you're missing out on that, or like are you more inclined to like seek out younger musicians then?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. It feels I'm really concerned about not being not taking advantage of people.
Yeah.
That's
just because you're a good person.
I hate that, but I also hate it with me. Like, here's a big difference coming from LA to here. Rehearsals are paid in LA.
Yep.
Every now and then I've had a paid rehearsal here, but usually I have a gig and they're like, let's get together for 2 hours or beforehand, because like you have to sometimes.
A lot of time you do.
And it's better that you do, and so it makes the gig better. So I will happily do it, but it's like this is a lot of time I'm putting in free.
You got to drive there. You got to prep the songs ahead of time. You got to.
Yep.
Yeah, man. It's an opportunity cost of not taking a gig that night.
Exactly. Yeah. It's this whole thing, and so I don't like being in that position with other musicians if I can avoid it.
Yeah.
And so like doing that to young musicians, because it's like, oh, they're still like bright eyed. That feels a little shitty to me.
Yeah, man. But you can also set the expectation, like say, hey, I'm usually like, this is my rate for a rehearsal. Are you okay with that?
Yeah. Yep.
Or something along those lines. Again, if you need it, but like sometimes it's just
sometimes
the
you don't
principle.
need it. Yeah.
It's just the principle of like, I'm a working professional. Like I don't ask you to, my accountant to sit down and crunch numbers for free. You know, so like, why would I expect that of anybody else?
Yeah.
Same thing goes for videographers and photographers and
exactly.
graphic designers.
Yep.
People should be paid for their work. That was one of the things. So my dad's run a series of software companies. One of his big things was like, we will not ever ask interns to work for free.
Great.
He's like free, internship work. That's bullshit. Like people should be paid for their time.
Yeah.
If that's minimum wage, great, but give them something.
Yes. Yep.
So my first job ever was with my dad's company.
Cool.
Just answering the phones.
Yeah.
And I mumble, so it wasn't a great job for me. But it was a great philosophy to like never ask anybody to give you something. Like, if they want to do it, great. That's amazing for them, you know. yeah, setting the expectation where you need it.
Yeah, but I like that a lot about never asking somebody to give you something. And I think it doesn't always have to be money. There are other types of agreements where value can be exchanged in various ways.
For sure.
Like, I mean, like the silly thing is free drinks or whatever, but gigs, like building a relationship with another musician to work together in the future is potentially valuable.
More valuable.
You're right. And so then there's this other problem, and there's this drummer I know, and he told me once that he said if you pay him anything, he brings his A game, but if it's a free gig, he might show up late, he might whatever. And I was like, dude, that's such a mistake.
That's a bad attitude.
I think you always have to bring your A game, and if you're not gonna, say no. Like if you don't feel like you can bring your A game, probably you shouldn't take the gig.
I very much agree.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear the phrase "fuck yes" or no?
yeah.
It's either like I'm all in, or you're just not doing it. But that's one of those situations, man. Especially as a drummer, like he's always going to be sought after. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's 'cause drummers are in such short supply, especially good drummers.
Yep.
That will show up on time, sober, ready to play, can play with the click tracks on time. It's a tough thing to find.
Yeah.
Because the guys that are good at it are always booked.
Yes.
They're playing in another serious act, or they're on the road. Yeah, it's when you play a weird instrument, you're more sought after. You know, I'm sure you're getting a lot of banjo work and
I get more guitar work actually.
I
feel like the guitar it's such a standard thing, and it's basically always appropriate.
Yeah.
And I feel like banjo actually is not a versatile instrument.
Because you're like pigeonholed into like bluegrass. Is that?
It's bluegrass, it's country, but like even the way you play it is very limiting.
Because it's tuned open.
It's tuned open, so either you play it with the finger picks or you play claw hammer, which I usually do. But the rhythm is very set. So doing things like odd meters or complex music requires some planning.
Interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't have. I don't know shit about banjo, you know.
Like,
but
it's way easier just to pick up a guitar and just like strum, and it's like, oh yeah, that's how it goes.
For sure. Yeah. And guitar is very formulaic, also. Like
it's probably similar with cello. I would imagine that fitting cello into certain vibes can be a little tough because it's not a bass.
So funny you say that. I played a gig 2 weeks ago with a band called Beatnik Bandits. Their bass player was booked for another gig. And basically, they saw me play at Friends and Allies. Yeah. They're like, "Hey, do you want to come sit in tonight?"
Nice.
So I played mostly like the bass lines for that, but it's not a true resonating bass.
Yep.
Just because the octave doesn't go down, right? It cuts short at C, so it's like just below the filler. But it's every instrument like has its place. Like that's why in an orchestra you've got every kind of texture represented, right? Yeah. And you've got a bass section, and then you've also got a cello section, right? Because they're two swim lanes, right? But yeah, like it's a versatile enough instrument that it can fill in, but it will never be a bass.
Right.
I was at a showcase last night where there was a stand-up bass player, big double bass, and he was playing up in thumb position like a cello, and it was astounding, man. Yeah. His intonation was perfect.
Oh, that's so powerful when you can nail that on a double bass. Oh my God, I love it.
I play that tune every day. Like, I'll be the first one to tell you, I can't play in tune for shit.
That's great.
But the bass player, man, it was really cool to like see the cello application of a bass, because usually it's the other way around. It's cello trying to play a bass part.
Well, but what's funny is it's the opposite with the history of the orchestra.
How so?
Well, there weren't basses. Well, basses originally would just double the cello parts. So the cello was the important part, and the bass was just there to add a little bit of oomph below. Huh. So like old like Haydn symphonies and stuff, the bass just doubles the cello part, but it's a cello part.
Interesting.
That's what we were always taught this in orchestration, so that the orchestra is the strings first and foremost. So all this flute nonsense, like that's just extra stuff.
The core is the string section.
It's the string, and it's the four.
Yep.
Violin, viola, cello. Then they add the bass just for that oomph. But like Mozart used to write about this, about like evolved people. And cellists and violinists are the most highly evolved forms of people. And like bass
I'm curious to
players
hear
are
about
like
that.
basically cavemen kind of a thing. Like,
There's knuckle dragging bass players.
no, seriously, he seriously wrote about this. But yeah,
Really?
But yeah, so like that the core of the orchestra is the violin, viola, cello.
Yeah.
And the orchestra is about the violin, but cello is the king of the orchestra.
I never heard that, but I like that.
Well, what do you think? What do you think the cello, like where does it fit in music?
So think about a string quartet as a watered down version of that
Right.
big orchestra, right? You've got two violins, you got a viola, you've got a cello.
Yep.
The cello's always the bass end. That's the bass part. We fucking Pachelbel's canon.
Yeah.
God, man.
Yep.
It's the same 8 notes in succession for what 4.5 minutes, and that's the kind of my first foray into orchestra was like, hey, I'm always gonna be the accompanist.
Right.
I've always got to listen to the violinist. I've always got to like make eye contact, pull in when they're coming down the downbeat, and look to other people for the cues. Like I've always, sure, you can still lead your section or whoever if you're sitting up farther, but at a point like that's why there are cello features and sonatas and things like that, because somewhere along the line people are like, wow, this is a beautiful timbre of an instrument. We should feature it and give it some life outside of its accompanist bass kind of zone there, and just to be able to give it a voice like that, it's got an amazing setting as like and I'm thinking of two cellos or somebody like that. Like you've got pieces that are specifically written for cello and piano, and it's got its own way of spotlighting, if you will. Yeah. Versus like if it's in a full ensemble, it's a backup part. So the context and the instrumentation matters immensely.
Sure. And what about how you play it more often? Would you say that your cello playing is more accompanimental, or is it the star?
No, my mentality as a musician is always as a unit, because you're painting it together. Like if you're cooking a meal with other chefs, right, and the meal comes out shitty, it's everybody's fault, no matter who does more of the heavy lifting or whatever. But the way I approach cello is like, again, fitting in with whatever the ensemble is, and like playing as a cohesive unit. You have to watch other people for cues. You have to be able to play a tasteful note that's not getting in the way of the vocal, that's not drowning out a guitar solo, that's not like mucking up a bass. So it depends a lot on who else I'm playing with, but that's why I love the freedom of playing with a singer-songwriter. I feel like I'm at my best when I'm either in a duo with another singer or a trio of some sort. Cool. Because it's like it's a non-traditional power trio. A power trio, you think like drums, bass, guitar, right? Like your Cream or your Jimi Hendrix, whatever, your Green Day, and they it's such a great thing because the guitar is the lead, the bass is the foundation, the drums, you got the percussive element there, and with cello and an acoustic singer-songwriter, I can play the bass lines during the verse. I can pluck. I can kind of fill things out. I can take a nasty guitar solo type thing right in the middle of the song, but at the same time, it's never drowned out by the guitar. So there's so much freedom to complement it and make it good for the song. Right. And I think that's what differentiates my playing from, like, if I went to music school like full time, I wouldn't have the same approach. My chops would be a billion times better. I was at a gig the other night. It was last Saturday. This guy walks in and he's like, "Yo, man, I'm a cellist too." I was like, "Oh, sweet." He goes, "Do you mind if I hop on for one?" I was like, "Yeah, go for it." And he jumped on and he went to music school. He went to like Loyola or somewhere for like a conservatory. And he was very good.
Loyola guys are so good.
Right? Yeah. It's there's something in the water there. Yeah. But he was a better cellist than I am. And I said to him, "Yo, man, this is dope. What if I hopped on guitar? Will you accompany me for a couple?"
That's great.
And he said he couldn't do it.
Yes. So, so a better cellist than you? Maybe not. It depends on what you mean.
The situation matters. I was disappointed partially because like I just really want to see him play. Part of me like I want to see him in that setting. Yeah. Part of me was like I want to see how I stack up against somebody who's formally trained. And then whenever he went back to his table, part of me was like, wow, can I do something unique that trained musicians can't do?
Yeah. Yes.
So that was like kind of validating.
Yeah.
But like, you know, you just don't want it to go to your head, but understand that like it's different. I don't think there's anybody out there that plays like I do.
Right.
So,
But that's great.
you have guys like Mark Block or like, man, who's the guy that jumps in the trees with his cello? Yeah.
He jumps in the trees with a cello.
His Instagram is Rashard Eggleston.
Okay. Does he destroy his cello?
He just beats the shit out of it. He's a hell of a cellist. He's truly amazing. Like once in a generation. But there's guys like that who just like have such a unique style that like I don't know if they play quite the same way I would.
I see.
Right?
I see. Yeah. I mean, but that's great to do something that's your own. I feel like that's the problem.
Maybe that's artistry.
With it is artistry. I think so. Conservatory training, I feel like can not always, but can be very siloing.
Did you feel like it helped or hindered you, like having a formal training?
I don't know. I think about this all the time. I don't know. I think I shouldn't have gone to school. I think I should have moved to Austin when I was 19 and started like playing every single night for 10 years.
Interesting.
And I think that would have been equally good, if not better, than music school. Because I know guitar players in town who are better guitar players than me, like young, like 20-year-olds. Mm-hmm. And they don't know the names of chords. They don't know anything. They play all the time, and they've like developed ideas. They've come up with their own ideas. So like as a teacher, I've been obsessed with this idea lately of teaching what, not how. Which is like, I feel like the traditional or the wisdom now is always teach people how to think, not what to think. Mm-hmm. And Nathan, or brother Nate, the bass player in my group, Zap and Claw Elixir, that's his double bass right there.
I met him at the mic the one night.
Yes, he came out. Yep, exactly. He said that you should teach what, not how, and allow students to develop their own how.
Cool.
So say, this is what we're playing, boo doo 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 doo, and just tell them that's what they're playing, and let them figure out how to play it, and let them come up with their own understanding of what it is, and maybe guide a little bit, but let them develop their own connections, because then they'll start to develop their own voice that's more interesting, rather than think about it like a major scale. Think about it like a 1-4-5 progression, and like some really really interesting jazz guitar players, Jimi Hendrix included, had a process like that where they developed their own understanding. So they didn't know as much of the traditional theory, but they kind of came to it on their own, and they had the same traditional theory, but in a very interesting kind of flipped on its head way.
I think you're right about that. So Hendrix was self-taught, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And man, that reminds me, I want to say Kurt Cobain kind of the same way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
Wow.
But maybe that's super... like you. Maybe like you had enough of the traditional to give you a language and a starting place, and then you jump into the deep end and go off on your own.
Anthony, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think like to have that foundation, man, I'm so thankful to like say, understand that most of the theory behind it, but like without getting into the weeds of fucking Mixolydian, Lydian scales. Like I don't give a shit. I took some guitar theory and I was just like, this is so dry. Like I couldn't get through it.
Yep.
So I'd rather like create a feeling, man. It's like, it's more about like how you pick a string. It's more about how your level of vibrato or like,
I mean, that's huge. I remember, because I had this problem in jazz theory, is they'd say, there's this chord and this is the scale you play over it. Yeah. But that's not really 100% true, because if you just play that scale over a chord, it sounds stupid. You have to have an idea of what you're doing. So yes, those notes are useful notes. And if you're using your ear, you're going to come to those notes anyway, probably.
And that's just it.
And if you don't, if you come to other notes, that might be interesting too, because that's the other thing about jazz, like jazz theory. Once you reach the top level, you can play any note at any time, given the right context.
Yep. There's no wrong notes.
Right. You just have to know how to shape it.
That's very freeing. It's a very like Herbie Hancock approach.
Yeah, exactly.
He says like, it doesn't matter what if you make a mistake, play the same note again.
Yeah.
If you do it twice, people don't think it's.
Although I did get the hook at the Elephant Room Jazz Jam one night.
Really?
Yeah.
What happened? What instrument were you playing?
I was playing guitar.
Okay.
But I went up and I couldn't figure out the key, and I didn't know the tune.
What was it?
It was Blue Skies. So like I knew the tune, but I didn't know it that well.
Okay.
and so like I couldn't quite find it, and then they called me to solo, and I was like, uh-oh. And I was just like trying. I was trying to just like listen to the note and use my ear to like find a little path.
Jazz is so hard, man.
And then the Michael Mordecai, the guy who hosts the jam, like it stops me. He's like, if you don't know it, don't play it. And like called the keyboard to finish the solo.
That's
I was like mortified.
But like, who does that in front of like, especially in front of an audience? But like to make somebody like feel like they fucked up.
I mean, it's okay because the next thing he did was he told me to call the next tune, which I feel like was it was like a reaching out a little bit. It was like a tough
love, but like, hey, try again.
Call the next tune.
Cool.
You call it. So like it puts it on me, but it allows me to redeem myself. So like,
gotcha.
Okay.
Did you learn from it?
It was a bad poker move. Don't say I can play tunes that I don't fully know at a jazz jam.
That's fair. Dude,
my ear isn't gonna do it for me.
But jazz is so hard, man. Like I feel like you have an out just by virtue of it being jazz. Like,
oh man, jazz is hard. I want to call myself like I want to say I have the ability to play jazz, and every time I think to say that, I think don't say that.
Tell me about your jazz training, whether that's music school or otherwise.
Yeah, I took a few jazz improv like classes in undergrad, and then I took 1 semester of jazz improv lessons in graduate school.
Was that fun?
It was great. It showed me how little I know about jazz. Because like if I would need to spend at least a year really like nose to the grindstone working on it to feel comfortable saying like I play jazz.
It's an art in itself.
Yeah. What about you? Jazz cello?
Not at all.
At all?
I mean,
where would you put your cello like more categorization?
Okay, here we go. Definitely more on the rock side, but like, is it weird to like call it like a lead cellist?
No, that's great.
Yeah, so like think about like if it's in place of a guitar or in place of a bass.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But like it's one of those things like I can't describe until like when somebody hears me play, they're like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
They're like, wow, this is you know, you're accompanying me the way a guitarist would.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, man, jazz has always escaped me. That's always been like my musical bucket list. It's like not necessarily take lessons, but like show up at the Elephant Room or like. I met a guy the other day in a studio session who has a residency at the Parker Jazz Club.
Oh, cool.
He's a really good drummer out there, and I want to go sit in with them sometime and just like kind of get an idea for like what is a jazz standard. And my cousin, who is a tremendous musician in his own right, he's a bass player, but he went to school for music also, and basically he went through a period of time where he would only play jazz because he's like that's the only artistic.
Yep.
There's like such like a douchebaggery to it.
There is. It's great.
But like again, like he just crushes it as a jazz player, and there's a culture within the jazz world of like this is true art.
Yeah.
This isn't your bubblegum Nashville bullshit. Like
yeah. No, that culture definitely exists. That attitude exists for sure.
Yeah. I don't want to call it elitist, but like it's the same thing in the classical world.
You can
right?
call it elitist. It is elitist.
Sometime.
Yeah.
It's elitist.
Rock
if
can be
you have that
elitist
attitude.
too, though.
For sure.
I think there's
sure.
elitism everywhere.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
It's
not so much it's more about the player. And if you know you're a really good player, you're probably gonna maybe be a little bit.
Well, so like that 20-year-old guitar player I was talking about, who's way better than me. He thinks I was talking to him. He thinks like a jazz musician. It's crazy. He thinks when he's soloing, he thinks through chords and chord shapes. And he's like, oh, I can play the chord here, here, and here. So I can do this, and connect it up to here, and like that.
Is that caged?
Yep, exactly. Cage. And I've never gotten into the cage system at all.
Yeah.
It's funny. Like I've played guitar for years and years and years, and it's like I understand it. It makes sense to me given where I am. I've never gotten into it, but that's his primary system, and he's like a killer guitar player. He's amazing. Yeah, the Hunter Walk Up, by the way, 20-year-old guitar player. Go see him.
All right,
he plays every Tuesday at the Friends Bar. Anyway.
Oh, great! I'm never gonna get to see him then.
Whatever. Yeah.
Friends and Eyes every Tuesday.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No problem. So the last topic I've been bringing this up with a lot of musicians is the voice and music.
The voice, like the TV show.
like law, like your voice.
Okay.
I think music is about the voice. I'm beginning to think this more and more. And so I didn't sing for years, and like it shows in my singing. I'm not a particularly trained singer, and I'm working on it. I'm better than I was a year ago, but forever I was one of those, I don't sing people. And I think it's a mistake because I think music is about singing first and foremost. And I've had different responses from different musicians, from yes to an immediate absolutely, I don't think that's what it's about. But like what you're talking about, lead cello and cello's role, the classical string instruments, I think, are built essentially to imitate a human voice, because it has that rasp, it has that sing, and you add the vibrato or something like that. And then what you're doing when you're playing music in a very connected way is you're either singing or dancing or doing both. So if you're playing leads, you're singing. Even if you're not doing it with your voice, you're doing it with your bow and a string, or you're doing it with a pick and a string. Or you could even be doing it with drums.
Sure.
Or you're dancing. You're playing funk. So maybe you're not singing. Maybe you're just
like a groove.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're dancing, and so somebody else can sing. So music and dance are like the same.
Interesting.
To me. And music is about singing to me. So I don't know. What do you think about it? Complete bullshit. Elitist nonsense.
No, man, it's not, because it comes down to the essence of what music is. Like, I think why people are drawn to it. Like, okay, let's go all the way back.
Yeah.
First written, recorded music.
Yeah.
Or not even recorded. For the first like semblance of like music in history was in a religious church kind of setting. Like it was more of a way to like unify people and celebrate and exalt God, if you will, right? So that's where you have like your really like droning kind of music,
like
right?
Gregorian chants and stuff.
Yes, exactly. And then that evolved from basically like having some kind of simple drums. Like music was a community thing. It wasn't just one person performing.
Right.
It wasn't an
about rock
involved
stars.
experience.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The community was based around a religious figure, a musician who basically could lead a community rather than be waved at and like praised from afar, right? And then going into like, I guess, the evolution of like skipping way ahead, Nashville, like it's all about, country's about the song.
Yeah.
Right. That's why you have people who are exclusively songwriters, and the whole thing is written around the story. Then you've got like flip side of the coin, something like a house beat or techno or something, where it's only dancing, right?
Right.
It's not, there's no, maybe little vocal samples. But the majority of it is like, again, based around the communication factor. And you can't get communicating, you can communicate certain emotions, but you can't communicate tangible words, right?
Right.
And the actual like telling of a story and a sequence of events and people and places and things that can only be articulated from the voice.
Right.
So therefore, in especially Western music, that's the most important part.
Right.
Hands down. Like, and the rest of the musical group should be in support of that.
Right.
And ideally have the rest of the community involved also.
Right.
Let everybody else sing the Na Na Nas and Hey Jude and like make it a very church-like experience.
Absolutely. I mean, the church, that's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
And the communal.
I grew up Jewish, so like I've had limited interactions. Most of my experiences in church have been playing cello and mass, so
Nice.
I'm very new to the church world, but that doesn't make it any less of a welcoming experience. Everyone's been so like, thank you for coming. Like, and the best services I've been to were engaged with the rest of the community. Right. And that's why people keep coming back, because they want to be part of it.
Yeah. The community part is, I mean, that's huge. That's what makes it powerful.
For sure.
It's this thing is like music is, there's that Jimi Hendrix quote, music is magic. There's another thing I think about a lot. Music isn't real. It is that shared space between a listener and a performer, or between a performer and between people. So music is by definition a connection between people. It's sort of like an agreement. So you're making sounds on a cello, but that's not music, that's just sounds. The same way that a tree wrestling is sounds, and then we start shaping it in our head.
We give it
notice
meaning.
pattern. We give it meaning, and then we look at the other person who's like, I played a 5-1. Oh, we agree on that meaning, and
Yep.
that's amazing. Like two
Speak
people
the same
agree on the
language.
meaning of a sound. That's wild.
Yeah, man. Especially when there's no words involved. Like,
Right. And the other part of it, this is like the fact that it's anarchic, like nobody decided, there was no authority on high that said, and like this shall be 5-1. That developed
Yep.
through culture. In the same way that our words, nobody decided that our words mean what they mean. It developed that way.
dude, I love that. That's like the core of like semiotics, right?
Yes. Yeah.
We give like the word no in itself. It's just vibrations.
Yep.
And we give it a meaning of like,
Yep.
but also could be the same.
Yeah, exactly. It could be anything.
onomatopoeia
It's,
right there.
it's arbitrary, and
Yeah.
but it's arbitrary, but it's decided. It's like communally decided.
And you know that. And the cool thing is like studying like how that cross culturally does that translate. Like going to somewhere in Southeast Asia and does like likewise translate to them in some meaningful way.
Well, do you follow the Silk Road Ensemble or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
What is that?
Yo-Yo Ma started an ensemble, and it's with musicians from around the world. So there's like Japanese shakuhachi players and like frame drum players from the Middle East and shamisen players. So the music from all over the world, accordion players, bagpipe players, and they tour and they make this. I think he calls it cross-cultural music, but it's sort of testing a similar idea. It's not with words, it's not with a sound, but it's musical ideas. And can these musical ideas be comprehensible?
Dude, I love that. Leave to Yamato
Together.
like just push the boundaries on shit.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear his? I guess it's not his. It's a collaboration. It's the Goat Rodeo Sessions.
Yes.
That's just the idea of like getting Chris Healy and the best all-star cast in a quartet together. It's incredible. They're Tiny Desk if you haven't seen it. Check it out.
But it's amazing. I mean, I have a theory that Yo-Yo Ma only knows how to play two pieces. The first, the prelude
Bach
for the Bach cello suite and the Swan. Because like that's all I ever hear him play. But I know he does other things. It's
But he
just
does
a goofy theory.
But he does it the best ever.
Yeah, that's true.
Technically, Yo-Yo Ma is like mostly a cover artist also. So like,
Yeah.
orchestras are just big cover bands.
They
We're
are.
talking about
Yep.
We're talking about artistry. Not everybody's fucking composing. You know,
That's true.
that's not a real thing.
Yeah. So what's coming up for you? What do you got?
What's coming up? So I got Tuesday nights at Friends and Allies.
Yeah.
Got Saturday
If
afternoons
you're in
at Friends
Austin,
and
come
Allies.
out. Yeah. You do your songwriter series, right?
Yep.
You play a couple hours, and then you sometimes or usually have a guest play.
Yeah, so we've kind of shifted formats. So
Okay.
that's the way it's been for the last like 7-ish months, where basically I play the first hour and then have a guest artist come on and we'd feature them, right?
Yeah.
You did one in October?
Yeah, I did one in while. Yep.
A long ass time ago. Yeah. So basically we just hang out and drink beer, day drink in the
what you
middle of
should
the day in the sunshine.
Yeah.
But we're kind of shifting the format, and I'm trying to play more cello, and I think they're
Cool.
The venue's looking for like just one artist to be playing on Saturdays.
Nice.
So we're trying to understand like how that's going to look going forward. But I'm playing a lot of private events, which kind of sucks.
Yeah, you don't promote them.
I want to tell people like, hey, come! I played a boat last week for an Indeed company party.
That's fun.
Just random like house parties and stuff.
Yeah. I got a few of those.
Yeah, man. Those are some of my favorite gigs.
Yeah.
But my goal for the next year is to get away from the cover circuit and to do exclusively original music, 45-minute type sets.
Yep.
Playing Red River. I want to play like Stay Gold. I want to play Stubbs and Doors in the next year.
Yep.
So that's what I'm working on, is actually shifting from technician to artist.
Great. I love it.
I feel
cool.
it's about time.
We should do an episode in a year. Let's see where it
Let's do it.
went. Yeah,
Let's do it.
Cool, man. Well, do you want to play a little bit?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. All right.
Cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Cool. I got C major. Nice and simple. And you just feel free to go off on it. It's like a basic chord progression, but it's like the whole scale's open. So
Cool.
makes the street. We don't know if grasping it will make us. We don't know. We don't know. We don't know.
Nice.
Lovely. That was great.
That was cool, man.
Yeah. You want to do one more?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Cool. Is there anything you want to play?
Undo cover.
A song called Street People by Bobby Charles. Hanging out with the street people, they got it down. Hanging out with the street people, they're all from town to town. I got a job at a nursery, but don't like what I grow. They tell the man to run me off, say don't come back home. Hanging out with the street people, they got it down. Hanging out with the street people, they're all from town to town. Who's gonna work, make the economy grow, and all hang out in the street? I don't know and I don't care, just as long as it ain't me. Hanging out with the street people, they got it down. Hanging out with the street people, they're all from town to town. So glad that I know what I know. I'm happy where I'm at. Some people would rather work, and we all people like that. But I'm glad on the street people, they got it down. I'm glad on the street people, they're all from town to town. Good morning. So glad that I know what I know. I'm happy where I'm at. Some people would rather work, and we all people like that. But I'm glad I'm the street people, 'cause they got it down. I'm glad I'm the street people, they're all from town to town. They're all from town to town. They're all from town to town. Lovely.
Nice.
That was great.
Hell yeah, man.
Cool, you were singing.
Yeah, right? That's what we're singing, though. Singing about street people.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, your call and response, you were singing with your cello. It was great.
Thanks, man.
Yeah,
That
dude.
was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks again for having me.
Yeah, where do you want to direct people to find your stuff? I'll link everything, but
You want to just give people my cell number and just
yeah.
Instagram, I guess, is probably what the kids do these days. I'm not on Snapchat anymore, so no more.
Probably good.
Yeah. Yeah, you can find me at it's Dan Radin, ITSDANRADIN.
Hell yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
See y'all.
Bye.
Cool.
That was fun, man.
Easy.
Hell yeah.
You sounded great on those jams.
That got you, man. That was fun.
Thanks for listening or watching, depending on if you are watching on YouTube or listening to the podcast stream somewhere. Remember to go check out Dan Radin. He plays all around Austin. Look him up. You can definitely find some cool shows to go out and see him at. And remember to leave a comment, and subscribe to my channels. I will see you all next time. Bye.